My name is Sister Elena, and the story I'm about to tell might just alter everything you believe about the serpent in Genesis. I have been a Carmelite nun for 45 years, dedicating myself to deep prayer and biblical studies. However, on September 23, 2023, I experienced death for exactly 23 minutes and 17 seconds. In those fleeting moments, Jesus Christ himself unveiled a startling revelation about the serpent from the Garden of Eden. This revelation reshapes our entire perspective on the fall of mankind and the triumph of Christ on the cross. Before we proceed, please share where you are tuning in from. It's comforting to feel connected, despite the physical distance. Also, remember to like and leave your thoughts about this near-death experience testimony. Let's engage in an open and respectful discussion to enrich our understanding together on this platform. Listen closely. The details are vividly imprinted in my mind. I was tending to roses when an overwhelming pain struck my chest. It was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. It seemed to crush my very soul. I attempted to shout for Sister Beatrice, who was not far from me, but my voice failed. As the world spun around me, the last thing I perceived was the fragrance of roses just before I fell into the blooms I had been caring for. What followed was beyond anything I could have anticipated in my many years of spiritual service. The agonizing pain disappeared immediately, and I found myself journeying through what appeared to be a realm of pure light. This experience was not the typical tunnel of light often recounted in near-death stories. Rather, it felt like I was traversing the essence of creation itself. I saw colors previously unknown to me, heard sounds that reminded me of celestial music, and felt a love so deep it seemed to infuse every atom around me. Then, before me stood Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, shining with a brilliance that would have overwhelmed any mortal sight. His form transcended the ordinary, both physical and spiritual, eluding the grasp of any earthly language. His eyes were deep pools of eternity, and his presence emitted a love so profound and pure that I instinctively dropped to my knees in adoration. "Rise, Elena," he commanded gently. "You are here for a reason. Today, I will share with you truths about the Garden of Eden that have been obscured for ages." As I rose to my feet, our surroundings shifted dramatically. We found ourselves in the Garden of Eden, yet it was unlike any depiction I had ever encountered in my studies. This Eden was intensely real, more vivid than any earthly landscape. The colors were deeper, the harmony more complete, every breath filled with the essence of divinity. But the most breathtaking moment was yet to come. "Watch carefully," Jesus instructed, pointing towards a figure emerging in the garden. "This is the entity your scriptures refer to as the serpent, but it is far from the simple snake many envision." The sight left me utterly speechless. The entity before us was indescribably magnificent, a creature of pure light, adorned with gemstones that seemed to capture and mirror the very splendor of God. This was not merely an angel, but a celestial of the highest order. "This," Jesus clarified, "is what your Hebrew scriptures refer to as the Nachash. Your English versions translate this as serpent, but the reality is much more profound. Look closely, Elena, for few have been granted this vision." I gazed in wonder as Jesus unveiled the true essence of this being. A guardian cherub, once a revered member of the heavenly court, standing in the immediate presence of God. The revelation was staggering, and it became clear why Eve was not terrified by this figure's presence in the garden. This was not a mere snake creeping through the grass. This was a divine entity, aglow with wisdom and radiance. "Lord," I asked, my voice quivering under the impact of this revelation, "why has this truth remained obscured for so long?" Jesus answered with a tone both tender and profound. "It has not been hidden, Elena, but veiled. The human mind tends to simplify complex spiritual realities into more manageable physical symbols. The serpent has been known as a symbol of deception, but the truth is much more significant. This was Lucifer, the morning star, the anointed cherub who once overshadowed my father's throne. As he spoke, the vision transformed, and I beheld a scene that would irreversibly alter my understanding of the scriptures. I saw this magnificent being in his prime, standing before God's throne, resplendent in glory, leading the heavenly hosts in worship. But then, slowly, I observed, as pride began to taint that radiance from within. "Watch closely," Jesus guided, "for this marks the birth of evil itself." I observed the metamorphosis of this luminous being into one shrouded in darkness. The change was not abrupt, but a slow decay driven by pride, culminating in outright defiance. I witnessed this once exalted cherub start to crave adoration for himself, convinced that his own beauty and intelligence entitled him to worship. This is why it's essential to grasp the true nature of the serpent, Jesus elucidated. Humanity's downfall was not precipitated by a mere snake, but by one of the loftiest of heaven's hosts, one who had basked in the direct presence of God and understood the magnitude of divine splendor. The vision transitioned once more, and I beheld this corrupted being as he entered the Garden of Eden. However, he did not come as a serpent. He arrived as a figure of light, brimming with wisdom and allure. This clarified why Eve would converse with him unafraid. He seemed not a threat, but a divine envoy, a radiant figure with seemingly godlike insight. The deceit was crafty, Jesus added. He did not present himself as malevolent, but as a beacon of light. This is why Paul would later caution that Satan himself disguises as an angel of light. This description wasn't merely poetic, it precisely captured his essence and his deceptive tactics. As Jesus and I stood within this heavenly vision of Eden, he began to unfold deeper insights about the nature of the deception that transpired there. The scenery shifted to the moment of temptation, but I viewed it through new eyes capable of discerning spiritual realities previously beyond my comprehension during my time on earth. What you are observing, Jesus detailed, is not merely a dialogue between a woman and a serpent. This scene represents a cosmic insurrection manifesting in the physical world. Observe how he approaches Eve. I watched as the fallen cherub, still resplendent despite his rebellion, approached Eve with deliberate precision. His appearance was awe-inspiring, a being who seemed to emanate divine wisdom and understanding. Now it was perfectly clear why Eve was not alarmed by his presence. He presented himself as a figure who rightfully belonged in the garden, a creature of light who appeared to hold divine authority. Observe his strategy, Jesus explained further. He starts not with a blatant falsehood, but with a question that undermines the truth of God's words. Did God actually say? This question was not born out of simple curiosity. It marked the onset of all heresy, the initial sprout of doubt in human thought. As the scene played out before me, Jesus elucidated the deep significance of the Hebrew word nachash. In your worldly languages, he detailed, words typically have straightforward meanings. However, in the spiritual realm, truths have multiple layers. The term nachash captures three essential characteristics of this entity: its serpentine form, its luminous presence, and its nature as a deceiver. All three attributes were evident at that moment, Jesus pointed out. The vision widened, and I saw how this being once stood before God, adorned with jewels, embodying perfect wisdom and beauty. Jesus clarified the precise meaning behind Ezekiel's words. You were the model of perfection, brimming with wisdom and flawless in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Each jewel was your adornment. This language wasn't merely poetic, Jesus stressed. It accurately reflected the true essence and appearance of this entity before his downfall. The jewels did more than beautify. They magnified and dispersed the divine radiance in ways beyond your human understanding. Then Jesus revealed a sight that shook my soul, the moment of Lucifer's fall. I witnessed his change from the morning star to the foe, from the anointed guardian to the ultimate betrayer. It was as if I was watching light transform into darkness, beauty twist into grotesqueness. Watch closely, Jesus instructed, for this illustrates why the deceit in Eden necessitated such a profound response, my coming to earth and ultimate sacrifice. This was more than a mere violation or consumed fruit. It represented a cosmic revolt that tainted the essence of creation itself. I observed as arrogance embedded itself within Lucifer's heart. The vision transitioned to illustrate the 5 declarations recorded by Isaiah. I will ascend into heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly. I will climb above the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Each proclamation, Jesus clarified, posed a direct affront to divine rule. This was not merely pride. It was a deliberate effort to overturn divine rights. When he approached Eve, he introduced this same spirit of insurrection, presenting her with a similar temptation. You will be like God. The insight deepened as Jesus displayed how this early deceit established the blueprint for all subsequent enticements. The serpent's method in Eden laid bare his underlying tactic, Jesus remarked. He does not come forth as malevolence, but rather as enlightenment. He doesn't commence with overt falsehoods, but rather with subtle inquiries questioning the goodness and truth of God. This is why grasping his true essence is vital for understanding the essence of temptation itself, Jesus pointed out. Then Jesus revealed to me a vision that brought me to my knees, the cosmic significance of his victory on the cross. The scene shifted to Calvary, yet I perceived it through a spiritual lens that went beyond the physical realm. I saw that his death was not merely a physical demise. It was a universal triumph over the entity who had sparked the rebellion in Eden. When I proclaimed, "It is finished" on the cross, Jesus elucidated, I was not merely referring to my physical agony. I was announcing a conquest over the Nachash himself. The prophecy from Eden that the seed of the woman would crush the serpent's head came to fruition at that moment. I watched in astonishment as the spiritual reality of Christ's victory unfolded before me. The cross transformed into a beacon of cosmic victory, marking the definitive end of the deceit that had originated in Eden. I witnessed how the death and resurrection of Jesus not only offered forgiveness for human sins, but also vanquished the very entity that had introduced sin into the world. This is why Paul would later assert that I disarmed the powers and authorities, made a public spectacle of them, and triumphed over them through the cross, Jesus expounded. The cross was not solely about human redemption. It was a pivotal act of cosmic restoration, aimed at overcoming the force that had initially tainted creation. The vision then transitioned to illustrate how this reality influences our comprehension of spiritual warfare. When my followers engage in spiritual battles, Jesus elaborated, they are not merely contending with human ideologies or natural tendencies. They are confronting the same entity that beguiled Eve, a fallen cherub who, despite his ultimate defeat, still wields considerable power and cunning. This insight reshapes our perception of temptation and spiritual warfare. The serpent was not merely a speaking snake. He was once a divine figure standing in the presence of God, retaining formidable intelligence and strength even in his downfall. This is why relying solely on human willpower falls short, Jesus articulated. The adversary you face possesses intelligence and might far beyond human capability. This is precisely why divine intervention was essential, why I needed to take human form and conquer him on your behalf. Jesus then revealed an insight that brought clarity to the broader narrative, how the entirety of Scripture narrates this saga of cosmic strife and divine triumph. From the beginning in Genesis to the culmination in Revelation, I observed how the conflict initiated in Eden perpetuates through the annals of human history, yet always underpinned by the assurance of Christ's definitive triumph. The serpent in Eden was more than merely a snake, Jesus highlighted. He was a fallen divine entity who still holds power and intellect despite his eventual defeat. Recognizing his true essence is essential for grasping the extent of humanity's downfall and the grandeur of my victory. The revelations deepened as Jesus imparted further insights into the cosmic struggle that started in Eden. The scene shifted once more, and I beheld the ramifications of the serpent's deceit affecting not only humanity, but the entirety of creation. The events in Eden, Jesus elucidated, sent ripples throughout the whole of creation. When Adam and Eve succumbed to the Nachash's trickery, they did not merely violate a simple command, they shifted their loyalty from divine governance to a fallen cherub who had defied the sovereign rule of heaven. I watched in wonder as Jesus demonstrated how this shift in allegiance bore cosmic consequences. My death and resurrection were not solely for the salvation of human souls. They were intended to heal the entirety of creation, Jesus shared, opening my eyes to a deeper spiritual understanding. He then illuminated how the prophecy in Genesis 3:15, where it speaks of the woman's seed crushing the serpent's head, extended beyond mere symbolic language. It represented a divine ultimatum in the battle against the fallen cherub who had tainted creation. By taking human form, Jesus clarified, I was not merely setting an example or sacrificing myself. I stepped into the physical world to directly challenge and overcome the very entity that had sparked the original rebellion. The cross represented more than just forgiveness. It symbolized a cosmic triumph, Jesus conveyed as he expanded my understanding of his life and death. I was mesmerized as he detailed the vast implications of his incarnation. From a divine viewpoint, I realized that his triumph on the cross reached beyond mere human redemption. It signified a total overthrow of the Nachash, fulfilling the ancient prophecy from Eden. Observe closely, Jesus directed, what occurred in the spiritual realm when I proclaimed, "It is finished," upon the cross. In that instant, I grasped the extensive effects of Christ's death. I saw that his sacrifice did not only secure forgiveness for human sins, it utterly dismantled the power the Nachash had wielded through deceit since Eden. The cross marked a definitive victory, completely overturning the corrupt influence that originated in the garden. This is why it's vital to grasp the true essence of the serpent, Jesus stressed. When people dismiss it as merely a snake, they overlook the extent of both the issue and the resolution. The deceiver was not a mere creature, but one of the most exalted beings in heaven, who had once stood in God's presence and led celestial worship. This is why the problem couldn't be remedied by human efforts alone. Divine intervention was necessary. It required God himself to take human form and conquer this adversary for humanity. Jesus then revealed something that moved me deeply, the way his triumph on the cross has affected all of creation, bringing tears to my spiritual eyes. I witnessed waves of renewal radiating from Calvary, reaching into every tainted corner of the universe due to the Nachash's insurrection. The cross, Jesus elucidated, went beyond mere personal salvation. It initiated a cosmic restoration. In my death and resurrection, I was not only rescuing individual souls, I was setting in motion the reclamation of everything corrupted by the Nachash's deceit in Eden. The revelation unfolded as Jesus illustrated how this knowledge profoundly alters our perception of spiritual warfare and the Christian existence. It's crucial for my followers to realize, he emphasized, that their struggle isn't only against human frailties or worldly temptations. They are confronting a fallen divine entity who once dwelled in God's immediate presence, an entity that still wields considerable intelligence and power, despite being ultimately vanquished. I realized as the significance of this truth unfolded. This understanding reshapes our entire approach to temptation and spiritual warfare. The adversary we face is not merely a mythical serpent or a mere emblem of evil. He is a fallen cherub who previously led celestial worship, retaining immense power and intelligence even after his defeat on the cross. This is why it's important for you to convey what you've witnessed, Jesus instructed me. People must grasp both the extent of the challenge and the totality of my triumph. As they came to understand that the serpent in Eden was not just any creature, but a celestial being who defied the rule of heaven, they started to see why human efforts alone could never address the issue of sin, and why my coming to earth and subsequent death were essential. As my time in heaven neared its end, Jesus shared one last insight about the importance of this revelation. He explained, "The tale of Eden is more than just about a serpent and forbidden fruit. It's about a heavenly revolt that demanded a universal remedy. My sacrifice on the cross offered that remedy, conquering not only sin and death, but also the very entity that brought them into your existence." As I felt myself being pulled back towards my physical form, Jesus imparted these final words to me. "Share what you've witnessed, Elena. Help them realize that the conflict was never just a physical one, but against the forces of evil in the spiritual realms. Make it clear that my triumph on the cross was absolute. I overcame not only human sin, but also the very entity that brought sin into being." Suddenly, I found myself back in my body, taking in desperate breaths as the medical team scrambled to assist me. The doctors later verified that I had been clinically dead for 23 minutes and 17 seconds. They were at a loss to explain how I had survived without any brain damage, especially given the prolonged period I had been deprived of oxygen. Since that profound experience, I've dedicated myself to spreading the truth that Jesus revealed to me about the real identity of the serpent in Eden. It was not merely a snake. It was a fallen divine being who had once resided in God's very presence. This revelation reshapes our understanding of temptation, salvation, and the significance of Christ's victory on the cross. The reason Jesus had to assume human form and conquer this foe is precisely because the serpent was no ordinary creature. It was among the highest of celestial beings, which is why it required God himself to intervene. The crucifixion was more than a mere act of forgiveness. It was a universal triumph over the entity that brought sin into our world. This testimony isn't centered around me, but focuses on the message Jesus intends for his church to grasp in these times. This isn't merely theological, it's a truth that transforms lives. Recognizing that the adversary we confront is far mightier than we ever imagined underscores the necessity of Christ's immense sacrifice. The crucifixion was more than just a mechanism for forgiveness. It aimed to defeat the serpent and reclaim what was lost in Eden. Christ's triumph over sin and death takes on even greater significance when seen through the lens of this cosmic conflict. Jesus entrusted me with this knowledge so that we might fully appreciate the depth of his victory and the profound love that propelled it. I hope this enlightens you on why this was a battle we could never have won on our own, and why Jesus' intervention was essential. This narrative isn't just about historical events. It pertains to the spiritual warfare we engage in today. Through Christ's victory, we are offered the ultimate hope,